Hey guys, we're on our third session of going darker. Well, actually, going copper for this previous blondie. That's how bright she used to be, just such a pretty bright blonde. And this is what we're going to be ending up with today. So keep watching if you guys want to see the process. To mix, I'm doing 665 and 57 equal parts with 20 volume. And this is all I was going to mix with, but then I decided since she does want to go a little bit darker, we're going to do a smidge of the 568. That was a last minute add, and the reason why we're adding that is because she wants to go darker. Before we were just doing Agora Vibrance with some really bright copper tones, but this time she decided she wanted to add a little bit more of an auburn color. So let's get into this application first, and then we're going to go over our formulation. So for this application, I'm going to be using the same color for this whole service. To start, we're going to be doing her roots. And I'm going to go around the bottom first, hit her like the outline of her roots and everything. And you'll see that I'm going to do her roots. And then every few sections, I'm going to drag the color in a foil through the ends of the hair. Previously, when we had added more depth and going darker to her hair, she wanted to not necessarily maintain her blonde, but she wanted to maintain a little bit of brightness. So when I was adding the dark into her hair, I was kind of doing like an ombre where it was darker, but where we were keeping a little bit more of the blonde through the ends of her hair. So this is the first time that I'm really actually dragging the color and foiling it all the way through the very ends. You will see in some areas that I'm splitting the ends in half and pulling them out of the foil, and I'm just bringing the color through like the midsection of her hair. But for the most part, I am going to be coloring all of the ends of her hair darker. In this top section for her roots, I'm going to apply it just to the very top where she parts her hair and kind of swish it down. But I'm only doing this on the very top of her head. I'm not going on her hairline, and I'm also staying off probably like an inch off of like the very front of her part. I want to make sure that it doesn't get too dark. We're trying to leave it a little bit brighter for more of a natural money piece in the front. And so I'm not going to be doing directly around her hairline or at the very front of her part. In some of these areas, like you can see her ends kind of dangling in and how bright they are still. That's from when I was using just the Agora Vibrance and just using what, like, I think the developer is like 13 volume deposit only. And I was using that just like the first time or two that I was doing her hair, partly because I was concerned that eventually she was going to want to go blonde again. I mean, she was such a bright, pretty blonde that usually blondes want to go back. And so I wanted to just use Agora Vibrance just to be safe in case she was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Which, you know, that's common. And so I wanted to play it safe and just use Agora Vibrance, something that wasn't permanent, to fill her hair and go darker. That way it'd be easy if she wanted to go lighter eventually. Really quickly, right here I'm using a Wow comb, which is really nice. It's a wide tooth, and then it has like a little roller on the inside of the comb that helps drag the color down. It makes it really amazing for blending, and it's one of my favorite tools. Also, if you have hair that's really hard to brush out and gets tangled, it actually helps brush out hair really nicely too. So, oh, another thing, these foils that I'm using, what are they? The Big Papa, Big Daddy foils by Framer. I think Big Papa, which I love these foils because they wrap all the way around the head. So you can get like they're long. This is like one huge sheet right here. And so you can do like a big section and not feel like you have to go in there with like this really fine detailed work. You can really get in there with like a big, huge, chunky weave, and this foil is going to stay in place. So it's really nice. It's really great. I love these foils for going through and like doing more of a lived in color or adding dimension, because, you know, if you're doing a lot of blonding, you have to usually do really small sections, but colors like this, you can get away with doing a little bit more of a heavier handed foil. And so I think these foils are perfect for that. So back to her color formulation that we were using. I previously, because of being weary of her wanting to go lighter again, I had just used the Igor Vibrance, like 5.7 and 7.77, just like the standard like copper tones that you would assume somebody would want. And you can see how bright her ends are. Like, it just continues to keep fading out. So over time, and that's even with like filling her hair and everything, it just fades out so fast. So this is like the third time that I've done her hair. And I'm like moving to permanent color because she's been loving it. She's super happy with the color. She has not at all regretted going darker. She feels like a different person. So I'm not worried about her wanting to go blonde. I will say that I also noticed, because like obviously it's gonna have great coverage and like deposit and look really pretty with the previously lightened hair. I just don't like it for like a root touch color because, and again, maybe I'm mixing it incorrectly. Maybe somebody knows better than I do, but I feel like it's resistant to cover her natural color. They always say that with like virgin hair, it's kind of more resistant for coverage. And I definitely find that if maybe I use like like Color Sync or something like that, that was like a 10 volume that had a little bit more of a lift to it. But since this is just deposit, I feel like it doesn't cover her roots at all. It didn't touch it. So I kept having to go back through after the service and like, okay, like the rest of your hair looks great, but like you can still see through to your natural color. So I started going to using the permanent color with I use 20 volume also because I want to get a little bit more of a lift and deposit. So I'm sure somebody could use 10 volume and be fine, but because we're doing like reds and copper and it fades so fast, I figured getting a little bit more of a coverage in there would probably be better. And since I've been doing that, it's actually been helping. Her color did not fade out as much as it did last time. So it's definitely been like a good choice to make for filling her blonde hair, adding more of a red copper tone. It's been holding a lot more using this way of formulating. You'll notice as I'm going through, because we are going darker and she is used to being really bright blonde, I want to try and maintain as much blonde pieces or lighter pieces as I can. So you can see that when I'm going through doing sections, I'm kind of grabbing some of the brighter blonde pieces that there are and I'm pulling them aside. I'm going through and doing the roots and everything still, but you'll notice when I'm like dragging color through the ends, if there's any bright blonde pieces through there, I'm gonna pick a few of those and leave them out. That way we have some nice pretty dimension in her hair color. I think that's one of the reasons why she loves this color so much and why she gets so many compliments on it, is because there's so much going on. She has like a really deep rich red color. She's kind of got like a medium copper and then like a light golden tone in there from like when she was a blonde. And I don't tone it that way, to be honest. I'll emulsify the color and let it kind of fill the blonde in, and that's what we do for her toner. So I always say, like, you can use one bowl of color and get 3 different looks, 3 different tones out of it. You just have to like apply accordingly. And so this is one of those ways of doing that. Again, you'll see that I'm starting in the back of her head, and that's because if this gets darker, it's going to look more natural that way. You don't want it to be darker like around the face. Color tends to, the longer it sits, the darker it gets. If it gets darker down at the nape of the neck, if it gets darker like in the crown area, that's fine. We want to maintain a little bit more brightness around the face anyways. So that's why I always start her color in the back. That way, if it gets a little bit darker, it sits a little bit longer, it's okay, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. Again, really quickly, how I mentioned pulling aside some of those blonde pieces, that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to cover some of them, throughout her hair because she wants to go darker ultimately, but I just want to maintain a few little pieces of brightness for a pretty dimension. I feel like for the last few years, copper has been like the fall color, you know, cowboy copper, whatever. I've had a few more clients wanting to go more of the red instead of just copper. I really feel like that 665 and then also the 668 is a really, or you know, whatever level you are on, the -68 or -65. I think those are really pretty colors for red or for auburn. I think was it 568 or 5 or 668. I can't remember. That third color that I added into my formulation, just for a little bit more of a darker auburn tone. I think that's really pretty because sometimes red, if you're not careful, it can look a little clowny. So having like an auburn or a copper to a red is a really good option to have. I remember when I used to use So Color by Matrix, and man, those reds they just looked clowny. And you didn't really have a lot of variation of different tones that you could choose from. It was like you had red violet or red red or red orange or orange red. But you had like three choices that you could choose from. You didn't really have, you know, a lot of soft, more natural tones. They were all more very like the vibrant, like so red colors, which is like the fire red tones, or like the purple red. So I really like that Schwarzkopf has a lot more options available, or with the number system, I feel like you can mix a lot of tones together versus just having the standard like lettered color formulations. So, yeah, if you guys are looking for a really pretty like red, I think the 6865 is really pretty with like a smidge of copper if they want to not be like too copper, but mostly red. Here, I'm trying to go through her hair and just pick out truly the brightest blonde pieces. She does have a lot of like golden blonde or copper blonde, but these are still really bright white blonde pieces. And I do kind of want to maintain those extra brighter pieces if I'm able to. So anytime you see me picking out these teeny little strands, it's probably those really bright white blonde pieces that I'm pulling aside. And now that I'm working my way to the top, this is a section where I'm not running the color through the ends. So I'm just going to pull those ends to the side, put another foil on top of it. That way it protects it as I'm folding it up. And then I'm going to wrap all of the hair up in that foil. But those ends are protected because I have that other foil on top of it to prevent color transfer. Another thing, see that foil sitting on the very top of her head that I flipped the hair over on? Make sure you guys are doing that when you're doing any sort of dimensional color like this where you have to flip the hair back and forth. That way you can prevent color transfer, because just laying the hair on top of the head, if there's a whole bunch of color up there, that alone will cause color to transfer onto the ends of the hair. For this last foil, I'm doing a weave, but I'm not doing it as drastic and chunky of a weave that I have done previously. Because it's on the very top, I want it to still blend nicely, but I want to see still some nice ribbons, but just have them be like a little bit more smaller of ribbons of pieces through the hair than through the bottom half of the hair that we had done. Okay, so this is the last of the application. Here's the back of the application, and you can see that we just already tapped the front of or the top of her part. And as I move to the side, you'll see that I haven't touched right where her front money piece is and the sides of her hairline. That's because this is going to grab darker and I don't want it to be darker. So I'm saving the money piece area and the sides of her head right on her hairline until the very, very last sections of her application. To do her sides, because I want to make sure everything processes equally, I'm going to start on one side, do this section, immediately flip over to the next side, do that section plus the following section, and then back to the other side. I do not want to do a whole section and then have that process longer, deposit darker, grab darker, or whatever, and then the other side's not as dark as the other side is. So when I'm doing a color like this, you'll always see me jump back and forth to make sure that both sides have essentially even processing time. Also, because I'm not doing like a standard, like running, the color through the ends every so many foils or whatever. I'm only doing it in a few pieces or a few areas. So I don't want to forget where that's at. So it's just easier also for me to remember, like, okay, I'm doing this section here, switch to the other side, do that section. Okay, I'm back to the other side. And this time I'm doing a foil through the ends of the hair. So now I'm flipping back to the other side, doing the same thing. And so it helps me remember instead of doing one whole side and then having to go back and be like, where did I put that foil at again? So anyways, it just makes it easier for me to remember. All right, we're gonna go through and do the outline of her roots for these side sections. But again, you can see that I'm pretty much leaving an inch of her hairline out again because I don't want that to grab darker. I want that to stay lighter than the rest of the color. So me leaving that out until the very, very end is gonna help it have a little bit more of a natural, softer highlight versus looking darker like the rest of the color. You'll notice that when I'm doing the sides, I'm not really running a whole bunch of color through the ends like I did in the back section. That's because, again, we want to maintain a little bit more brightness through the hair on the sides as we get closer to the face. So that's why I'm not doing quite as much as I did in the back, just because I want to have a little bit more brightness in this area. So you'll notice that I'm going to be swishing it through like a couple inches down off the roots, but the ends of the hair anyways are going to be left a little bit lighter. So you'll notice that I'm just going to do some foils. Really, I'm just going to pop a few foils in, not a whole bunch, and maintain a little bit more brightness through the ends of the hair than we did in the back. You'll notice as I'm doing my root application, especially as we're getting closer to the top, I'm dragging the root down a little bit further on the back section of the hair. You can see here that I'm kind of dragging it down lower. I'm sweeping it. It's not just like a straight across line. I want everything to blend and feather nicely and just have more of like an organic look to it instead of just like doing a straight perfect color retouch application. I feel like the more you're swishing the color on, the better it's going to look and everything is going to blend a lot nicer than having like a harsh line of a new root color. So you'll see that I swished it down a little bit, dropped it down a little bit further towards the back of the head, and then we left it a little bit higher towards the front of the face. Now you can see that we're doing finally around the face, but you'll see that I'm mostly just tapping it right on the roots. I'm not dragging it down really any further. I might be swishing it a little bit just to blend the roots, but the closer that I get to the face and the very top, I'm really not dragging it down like to the midsection or anything like that. It's really just going to be on the first 1.5 inches of the hair. I also want to say that I let her after I did her whole application, I let her process for 45 minutes and I saved this very section right around her hairline. Look, you can already see that color, and that very back section is oxidizing to a really nice dark auburn red color. So that's been sitting for a while already. This section I'm doing honestly like the last 15 minutes. I'm not letting it sit for very long. It's just gonna sit for the last few minutes of processing just to get a little bit of color on there, but I don't want it to be as dark as the rest of it. So that's why I didn't let it sit for as long. Okay, and here is the full application all the way from around the face. You can see I didn't drag it too far down in that area, and then all the foils in the back. Now for this part, you need to make sure that you're washing your client's hair out with as cold of water as they can stand. To prevent reds, coppers from fading, they have to know that they have to wash their hair with as frigid water as possible. And I am not talking about lukewarm, honey. That water needs to be cold. And I will tell them, hey, I've had my hair bright copper. I know that it is not comfortable, but if you want your hair to stay vibrant and you don't want it to fade out fast, you need to use really ice cold water. So I didn't mix anything else to tone her hair, quote unquote tone. So just to tone her hair, I basically just added a little bit of water to her hair and like emulsified all of the color that's existing in her hair already through the ends, through like the blonde in her hair. Basically, that's what I'm using. That's all the color that we've already applied. That's the same color that I'm doing right now. I'm just using that same bowl that we started with, and I'm just running everything through the ends. And that's what I'm using to tone the rest of the hair, refreshen up the ends of her hair. I didn't like remix or anything like that. So again, make sure that you're using cold water. I cannot say this enough. I've had a client call me back, like, and tell your clients don't wash their hair for 3 days. That's what I tell every single one of my clients. Cold water, don't wash your hair for 3 days. I've had a client call me back on day 2 and say that all the red faded out. And I said, well, what did you do? Because also you shouldn't have washed your hair yet. And she said it was her daughter's hair. And I was like, well, what temperature of water did she use? Well, it was lukewarm. I was like, was it lukewarm or was it warm or was it cold? Well, it was like lukewarm or whatever. And I said, well, I told her to use cold water. And I even told her. She's like, I know, but it's cold and uncomfortable. I said, I know it's not comfortable, but if you want it to maintain color and not fade out, that's what you have to do. So I absolutely did not like have her come in and redo her color because she didn't listen to instructions. So you have to explain that to your clients. Cold water, if you want it to maintain vibrancy, and if you don't want it to fade out, you have to use cold water, not lukewarm, as ice cold as possible. And then also don't wash your hair for 3 days after you get your color done. Another thing that you can have your clients get is a color mask. Like Schwarzkopf has a really pretty copper one, and there's also red ones, and those make a really big difference in just helping keep the vibrancy of the color up.
Oh, I love it so much. It looks so good.
Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah, we still got that, like, just a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, up there. Do you like it with having the dark coat all the way through?
Yeah. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
It looks so good. And it's not quite like, it's not like red, but it's,
Yeah, like definitely when the light
brownish.
hits it, you'll see it a lot more.
Yeah.
too.
yeah, I love it. It's like the perfect color.
Yeah. Okay. All right, here's my client's before for today. Still really coppery, but she wanted to go a little bit darker, more auburn, and darken her roots up especially. This is for my Instagram stories. If you guys aren't following me over there, you need to. Modern Blonde by Christy. And here's her after. I really love her hair. Look at all those pretty colors. That's what I'm talking about when I said I wanted to pick out those brighter blonde pieces. Look at how they just shine through, and it adds such a pretty bright tone of dimension. It's still really light blonde, but it just has that really soft golden coppery tone to it. Really dark ribbons of dimension going through her hair, which she really loved and wanted. Look at that color. They're so pretty. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Oh, and also here's the front. See, just barely tapping that root at the front, just letting it sit the last 15 minutes. It shifted the color and it gave her a nice money piece. It didn't go dark like the rest of her hair or anything like that, but it just blends really nicely. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.